Hey, we are back with episode number 27. And don't forget, Viral Nation needs you to help subscribe to our channel. So if you have a second, go ahead and subscribe right now. Don't miss another episode. We're going to be giving away some free goggles on our next episode of the Viral Nation. All you need to do is subscribe to the channel and pick the top three in both classes as we go into round number 3, even though Oakland has been postponed. But round number 3, we are going to pick a winner and give away some free goggles. So go ahead and subscribe, and we'll be back here in just a moment, right after the intro.
Wake up at 5 a.m. Gotta be at the track at 10. It's time to ride. All of this anticipation to ride in the Viral Nation.
All right, so Supercross is well underway. We had the first round down. Unfortunately, they have postponed the Oakland round due to heavy rain and being unable to actually build the track. So, which is the first time in 50 plus years of Supercross running here in the United States that they have not been able to actually run a race due to the rain. And that's in the Supercross world is pretty crazy, actually. But it is what it is. A ton of the riders have headed up to the round in Arizona to race that arena cross. That is the Kicker Arena Cross, I believe is what it is. And I know there's over 51 riders in that one. But before the Supercross season started and before the Kicker season started, we've had the General Tire Arena Cross, which airs on Fox Sports 1 Sunday mornings. Or Sunday, sometimes Sunday. You need to check your local listings to figure out exactly when it is. But the General Tire Arena Cross is on. Mike ALESSI is our guy there, who's been holding down the fort for Viral Brand there. And we are just super excited for him and his season. You know, it started out a little shaky. He had a couple good rounds, he had a bike problem, and which cost him a bunch of points. But he has slowly but surely been grinding away at it, and has worked himself up into second place, I believe, overall in the point system. But he got his first win last weekend at the round there, wherever I think it was Lincoln, Nebraska is where they were last weekend. And so it was good. It was good to see Mike get up there and be running up front. As you can see, Mike got his first win in the 450 class, so we're pretty excited about that. I mean, you know, we've had some big riders over the past years that we've had this team, but we're really excited to get Mike on board. Really good dude. He's been absolutely great to work with and has shown nothing but professionalism from the time that he joined with us to today. And so, as I said, it's just great to have Mike on board with us going into 2023, and he's been doing a great job at the General Tire Arena Cross deal. Don't forget, guys, the General Tire Arena Cross shows on Fox Sports 1 on Sundays. You guys can find it. Go to your local listing. You can find that available. And let's look at some points here really quick. So looking at the point, or let's look at the points here. So points in the 250 Pro class right now, you got Michael Hicks running in the number 1 spot with a pretty good lead, 43 points over Michael ALESSI. Carter Garton is right there, though. He is running in the number 3 spot, followed by Cheyenne Harmon, who used to ride for Viral for a very brief second. We didn't have laminates at the time, and he just had to have laminates, and so we parted ways pretty amicably. He's running in 4th place right now, and then Greenlee is running in 5th place. That is your 250 Pro class. In your 450 Pro class, Michael Hicks again is out front. He's got a 52-point lead, so a little bit bigger lead in this one. ALESSI running in the number 2 spot. Gordon in 3. Greenlee in 4. Harmon in 5. Harmon ended up getting hurt last weekend. He wasn't able to race. When you look at the results here from last weekend's race, let's go down here to the 250 Pro class. Hicks wins the 250 Pro class. Mike ALESSI comes in a second place on the podium. In the 450 class, though, that's where we see Mike move up and get his first win. And it goes ALESSI, Buys, Hicks, Gordon, and Greenlee. That is your top 5 in the General Tire Arena Cross Outlaw Series, brought to you by Geico Honda. And again, just super excited to have Mike on board with us. He's done just a great job, with us this year. Good feedback on the product. He's helping us move forward with what we do, and just excited to have him on board with us for 2023. Now, as we talked about, Oakland Supercross was canceled, obviously due to weather. So as I said, a lot of the riders had headed over there. 51 riders headed up to Arizona for the Arena Cross they're having there. That's the West Coast Arena Cross Series, and that's the AMA rounds. And it's gonna be a barn burster, man. Though there are so many riders there, they don't have very many spots on the gate, and it's tight quarters. You look at Supercross and how wide open Supercross is, and then you look at Arena Cross and realize, man, it is tight. I've got a lot of experience racing Arena Cross. I raced Arena Cross in the Northwest here, started in 1987, back when tires were still square, and all the way through until 99, early 2000s when I stopped riding Arena Cross. And I was pretty successful on the local level up here, and we had a West Coast series that I raced as well. We traveled down to San Jose, and we traveled to up to Canada, up to Edmonton up in Canada, Vancouver, BC, Tacoma, Washington. We traveled all over for that series. And what I always found really interesting about that series is you'd go into a round, like let's say California, right? We went down there maybe 2-3 times in the 6 years that I followed that series. And you'd always have some factory guy or factory support guy show up. The PJ1 team back in the day had a couple different guys, Donaldson and I forget the other guy's name, but they were Supercross guys. Those guys that raced Supercross pretty much every weekend, making main events. I'd already stopped racing Supercross by that point. And we go to these Arena Crosses, and they didn't know what to make of guys like us, or like myself that just did Arena Cross and didn't really show up at any of the Supercrosses. And we were tough. For one, we knew the way the track was going to be. We had our bike set up for a really tight track, right? And it was just, and there's a lot of bar banging, and it's a really aggressive when you get into either a hockey size arena or a little bit bigger arena than that. But when you come from Supercross to an Arena Cross, it feels like you're on a really tiny track. Go back to a Supercross, now you feel like you're on an outdoor national track. You have so much room. So should be really interesting. I think it's on tonight on Fox Sports 1 as well. I'm not sure if they're on Fox as well, but the Arena Cross series from the West Coast should be playing tonight as well. If you want to get a chance to watch it, should be some really, really good racing. I had the opportunity to head over to the Anaheim 1 here last weekend. We did a podcast from down there. It was horrible, obviously. No one watched it, but it was difficult. I mean, it took us forever to get it to load. It took us forever to edit. We tried to do it all from my phone, and I just, didn't work. So now we're back in the studio, and hopefully this is a little bit better production value, and also a little bit better as far as the quality of what we're working on. We have a bunch of stuff that we want to go over from that thing. I want to talk about the track a little bit. I want to do a little bit of a deep dive into it. We're going to start going through some of the points. I'm also going to talk really specifically about some of the riders from that event. We're going to talk a little bit about our riders, and we are going to have a little bit of video from me walking around the track, which was kind of fun. So we're going to do that here in just a minute, but we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. All right, so let's jump into Supercross 2023. Obviously, lots of changes going into the season. Obviously, one of the biggest one was Ken Roczen on the Suzuki. I had a great opportunity to talk to the head guy at Suzuki that day that was there. He's more the PR guy. I ran into him at Glen Helen earlier this year when we were doing our goggle intro. Motocross Action was testing the Suzukis that weekend, and so he and I got a chance to talk a little bit. And right from Suzuki, they're just excited to have Roczen on board. They're excited so much to have Roczen on board that this weekend coming up, not Oakland weekend, but the San Diego weekend, Suzuki's actually flying their executives out here to watch the Supercross and be part of Supercross again. Now it's been a minute since Suzuki has sent anybody from the factory here to look at Supercross, to look at motocross racing. And if you know anything about Suzuki, they've pulled back from almost everything: road racing, motocross, you name it. They've pretty much pulled back. Excuse me. And so it's really cool for the sport. Somebody pointed out to me that there was like 7 or 8 different manufacturers in the top 10 during the main event, which is pretty damn awesome. I was going to say that I thought Kenny led for a little bit, but I think Kenny got into second, which, as far as Suzuki's concerned, anything other than the bike not finishing the race, right, is almost a win for them, because they haven't put much development time into the bike as far as what the other factories have done. They haven't been out there with a race team developing the bikes and doing that kind of stuff. But, they are there. They had a big presence in the pits. They had Kenny there, and it was pretty cool to see. It was actually pretty awesome. And, not that I'm a huge, so I'm a fan of the sport, and I'm a fan of things that make a difference in the sport. So having another manufacturer, it does a couple things. One, it gives you another place for riders to go, right? So you only have so many factory rides. Back in the day when I got my factory support ride, there was only 4 of us in the whole country, right? There was myself, Mike Craig, Scott Brown, and Sean Kalos that year. And then you had the factory guys that actually had factory bikes. We were all factory support guys that year that I had my support ride. But that's out of, you have an entire country trying to race Supercross, and from that Supercross you have 100+ guys back then trying to make a main event, and only had 20 spots in the main, or 22 spots in the main event. And so to have another team available for riders now just gives more guys opportunity to have better equipment. And so you've got Suzuki back, and then you have Gas and Husqvarna, and you have KTM, and then you have Kawasaki, and you have Honda, and you're going to have Triumph here. That is pretty awesome to have that many manufacturers putting everything into this thing to try to field. And Beta, from what I hear, Beta really wants to be in Supercross, and with their showing last year at the MXGPs, there's a good chance we might see a Beta team here in the near future. And then of course you've got a couple of cool guys that are out there riding 2-strokes too, which is always a lot of fun. So, but let's take a look quick. We're gonna pop over here. Give me just one sec to get it set up. But we're gonna pop over here. This is just a quick little look at the track from where this was first practice. It was pretty dang muddy. You got Logan Carnow, and you've got Logan running on this thing. You have right behind him Tristan Lane. Both of those are our riders. You can see it was pretty rutted up as the morning went through. A lot of guys crashing in this section. This section of the track was actually the section of the track that didn't get much sun, so it really was pretty wet and pretty deep and pretty treacherous. A lot of guys went down, took out. Pierce Brown went down in this exact section. Right down here at the very bottom of the screen, right down here in this area right here. And, we lost another one of the riders, David Pulley, who's been around forever. David has been riding Supercross for a really, really long time. He went down. I heard he broke his leg, but I'm not 100% sure what happened to David. But a lot of stuff had gone down in that section of the track. And so it was definitely tough getting through the track. And one of the things that happened that a lot of people haven't talked about. I'm sure if you've been listening to all the talking heads about Supercross, they've all talked about it. But they cover the track so that the tops of the jumps and the sides of the jumps were pretty dry. So most of the obstacles were dry, as you could kind of see from the track when we were looking at it there. But it was all the transitions, all the in-between spots where the water pooled up, where it soaked in. And they worked that and worked it and worked it and worked it and really came up with a raceable track, but it was very treacherous. Lots of ruts. You saw Barsha go off track. And that's not something that you see him do very often. I mean, that was something that was pretty out of the ordinary for him. He might push people off the track, but you don't see him go off track all that often. So, but the track was pretty gnarly, and so to watch those guys come in, I'm really glad that a couple of riders didn't get hurt worse. Really bummed out for Austin Faulkner. I had the pleasure of actually sitting with his mom during the heat race, and she was she's very, very lively lady and very passionate about the sport. And Austin did not get a good start. We came through the pack and worked his way up, and it was a hell of a ride. Putting the fastest time up during qualifying. He looked absolutely great all day long until the main event and the crash on the start. And we actually posted a video of that, and it was kind of funny, some of the comments that we got on that, because I actually put on there that I'm the one that posted it, but I put it on there that Austin was taken out by his teammate, and of course people wanted to point out that he got into this guy got third. Anyways, they got into the side of him, and when him and the Husky got together, it ended up pushing him back over into his guy, which is absolutely true. I mean, it's his guy didn't take him out, but I will say that it's just the most shit luck for that guy, to go out there last 3 seasons, be hurt every single season. The kid is talented. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He just needs a little bit of luck on his side. And right now, he just doesn't have any luck. That's just the one thing he doesn't have. He does not have luck. He's got a lot of other stuff, but luck's not one of them. We had our 3 riders there last weekend. And, before I get to that, though, I want to show you this. I think this is absolutely cool. This is a really great illustration of how big the whoops were down there. Supercross whoops are no joke. And you can see the guys walking through them here, and you can see how big these are. Now, this is not the kind of whoops that we had when I first started racing Supercross. Back when I started racing Supercross, whoops were a disaster. And what they would do is they would actually build up a tabletop, more or less, right? And then they'd go in with a backhoe and they'd backhoe out the whoop section, right? So you'd have basically kind of a square edge top is what you have, with big giant square gaps. And going into those the first couple times of practice was just an absolute disaster. In my memory, I can still see the guys right before I was out standing on the track watching practice, and I think it was a 250 class. And they'd go popping in there. We're talking like Keith Bowen and Jeff Ward and Johnny O'Mara and Rick Johnson. And they'd go in there and they're just crashing their brains out because you couldn't go through them. You'd jump in and then you'd stop. And what everyone was waiting for is for the edges to get knocked off so they weren't so sharp. And then they'd turn more into whoops. But LA Coliseum was that way. Anaheim's were that way. They didn't start rolling whoops in the very beginning. And then as they 89 and 90, they started rolling the whoops more. They were typically a little smaller than this, but a little tighter together and a lot longer. Typically, we had really long whoop sections back in the day, where they have a tendency now to keep the whoops a little bit shorter. But I just thought this was a great shot of the whoop section, and basically how big they really are when you get a really good side view perspective. Because on TV, it does not do it justice what you see on TV, what a Supercross track is in real life. I can tell you that. So let's go back here and let's go ahead and get out of that deal, and let's bring up old Logan Carr now here. And so Logan, had a good run. Tried to, obviously didn't make the main event, but was working his way towards the front all night long. Bad starts kind of cost him in the LCQ, but Logan's program was awesome, and his fan base was huge. He had Ronnie Mack in there, and the fans went for as far as you could see for the entire autograph session. It was pretty impressive. Running a Supercross team, seeing the lines, trying to get people to come to your pits. Logan absolutely killed it. It was really, really cool. Next up, we got Tristan Lane. Tristan Lane was number 90. Tristan was our guy that we picked up here right before the season started, and they're actually doing, what's really cool is they're actually doing a Mercedes type of theme to his bike. He's riding a gas, but he is on a Mercedes themed bike, and it matches his gear and it matches his helmet, and it's super cool. I mean, the super cool graphic design. And so again, Tristan rode really well, battled it out. He was just off of qualifying in the LCQ, but close. I anticipate seeing both of these boys into the main events here, short order at late. And then we've got Trey Fierro, and Trey, unfortunately, was not able to make the night show. He's a 5-time Mexican outdoor national champion. He came here, got some training in prior to the first round, but just couldn't get going with the track. He struggled a little bit in the whoops, but looked really good. I mean, I was really impressed. He was only like maybe a half a second to a second off qualifying for the night show. And from there, I think once he would have got into the night show, I think he would have been a contender to get into the main event. There's a lot of guys that, I say this with almost no reservations. I have no idea how I would have done if they had time practices when I was racing, because even though I'm always the first guy on the track, doesn't matter where I'm at, I always want to be the first guy on the track. I always want to ride with the fast guys, but I'm a racer. Like when the gate drops, I ride way better when the gate drops than when I'm just practicing. And I've always kind of been that way. Prime example is 1986, which we're going way back again. Sorry, kids. But going way back to 1986 when I did the ALA Coliseum, they have a 90-foot quad. And I could not muster it up to jump that damn thing during practice. Everybody else, well, not everybody, but a lot of guys had already jumped it during practice. And I got a good start. I was running in like 3rd or 4th place. I'm not sure exactly where I was at in my day qualifier. They qualified differently back then. You actually raced your way in back then. You didn't have a time qualifying. And so I come rolling around the first corner, come around the corner for that thing. And I know that if I don't jump it, there's no chance of me going to the main event, right? Or even qualifying for the night show. And so we come around the corner and I just huck it. I just keep it pinned. Guy in front of me is pinned. And it's the instant that I took off the ground, I was damn sure that I wasn't going to make it. I was just like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. But I made it. I mean, I just barely clicked over it. And that was just the way the jump was set up. No matter how hard you hit it, you didn't go up. You went out. You just went out. So anyways, long story short, I got through that deal, and with time qualifying, I just don't know if I would have done well on it. And some guys don't do well. Cooper Webb, you listen to him, he talks about it all the time how he doesn't do well in time qualifying. And then of course you look at the main event and look how that guy did last weekend. I mean, the guy was pretty impressive. So let's take a look. Let's go over here to the results. Let's jump into the Supercross results, and we're going to talk about 250 class first. And then we're going to go from there. So in the 250 class, let's go through your combined qualifying times first. And the combined qualifying times for the 250 class were pretty impressive. Austin Faulkner obviously put down just an incredible laps, just a tick ahead of Jet. Pierce Brown right there. And I find it absolutely a complete and utter bummer, I don't know other word for it, to have Austin Faulkner and Pierce Brown out at round 1 before the main event, before you had any chance to do anything. Both those guys are done. And I just think that absolutely stinks. And Hampshire, that's who I couldn't remember his name. Hampshire was who got into the side of Faulkner on the start. So you look here at time qualifying: Faulkner, Lawrence, Brown, Hampshire, McAdoo, Kitchen, Lopez, Volan, Roberts, Olberg, Walsh, Kelly, Drake, Robbins, and Wageman. Those are all that's your top 15 guys, right? And I'm telling you, I mean, that's stacked. And if you look at the times, the top four were all within hundredths of a second of each other, right? Drop down to McAdoo. He's in the 101s, and those go to the next four guys are all in the 101s. Then the next three are in the 102s. And then you start getting into the 103s. And that's kind of the 103, 104s is kind of the majority of the guys that made the night show is where they were at. So, but the top guys, I mean, you're looking at four guys that are absolutely smoking fast. And two of those guys aren't going to be riding the West Coast Series as it sits right now. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 450 combined qualifying time. And Chase Sexton, the only one to do sub-minute, right? 59 seconds. And Tomac with a 1 minute, Marvin with a 1 minute, Anderson with a 1 minute, Roczen with a 1 minute, Fernandez, Webb. And then you start getting into the 101s. You're looking at Cicerillo, Stewart, Plessinger, Barsha, and Savacci. Savacci showing up on a privateer rig, which was pretty interesting. I didn't think he was actually going to race this year, so that's kind of cool. Wilson there in the 102s. Then you got Nichols, 103. But by the way, I think he was one of the most overlooked riders of A1 because he's a rookie, a full-fledged rookie, right? This is his first year racing 450s. And yeah, he might have taken over Roczen's ride, but he is a full-fledged rookie. And we'll get into his results here in a minute. But I mean, dang. I mean, I really thought that he handled himself really, really well. Hill, Clayson, Starling, Harlan, Noren, Hill, Cartwright, and Chisholm, and then McElrath. And I'll be honest with you, I was pretty surprised by Shane McElrath. I expected more from him. I know he crashed, but just from qualifying and all that, I really did expect a little bit more from him. So let's go down to heat one of the 250 class or the 250 class and look at the results. So obviously Hampshire, Jet, Volan, Kitchen, Olberg, Kelly, Thompson, Yoder, and Rodriguez. Those guys all directly went to the main event. Kitchen, obviously, from the Northwest here out of Washougal, Washington. Super stoked to have Kitchen kicking ass and racing the West Coast. Got a chance to talk to him. Known him since he was a little boy, a little guy, but haven't seen him in a long time. He's gotten so much taller. It's crazy. And then Olenberg, obviously riding really well. Max Volan, I was pulling for Max the entire weekend. A lot of guys kind of written him off after last year and some of the results he had last year. I've known his dad, knew his uncle. Both of those, his uncle and his dad were amazing motorcycle riders, hugely talented. And so to see Max really starting to put it together this year is really exciting. So I got big hopes for him. Let's look at heat race number 2. Heat race number 2, you got McAdoo, Enzo Lopes. To me, he was a surprise of that class. He got top qualifying in the first qualifying session, and it was pretty awesome. Austin Faulkner from almost 18th place at the start of that moto, up to 3rd. Dylan Walsh from Australia. You have Drake, Robertson, Nicoletti, Wageman, and Schwartz all going directly to the LCQ or to the main event. Everybody else went to the LCQ. Obviously, Pierce Brown didn't even make it out of the second corner, which was just such a bummer. I watched the crash happen right in front of me. Got tangled up with another rider. The double going into that. It was a double in, step onto a table, and then you could either step over on and then single out, or you could land and go 2 out. Well, the 2 out had a real bad kicker in it, and that's what was eating a lot of guys alive, and that's what got Pierce. Him and another guy got together, and then of course Wilson Todd got into it, and he went down and also didn't make the night show. So both those guys in qualifier 2. In in the Supercross class, or the 450 Supercross class, Moto number 1 was pretty awesome. Eli out front. Ferrandis, Cicerillo, Plessinger, Anderson, Savacci, Nichols, Craig, and Harlan. And I'm sure you've watched all this, but we're just going to kind of run through these. Tomac just looked from the track walk, because I happened to be around him a little bit during track walk, to the heat races, and obviously the main event. You know, I'm just telling you, these guys are in trouble. Excuse me. These guys are in trouble. I can just tell you that. If he gets starts like he did, and he rides the way he's doing, I don't think anybody has anything for him. Nothing at all. Everybody else here had to go through LCQ. Logan Carnell with a 12th, Alex Ray, Morans, those guys, Logan was only 2 or 3 spots out of qualifying. So that was in qualifier number 1. In qualifier number 2, you had Sexton, Roczen, Webb, Stewart, Musquin, Barsha, Wilson, and Hill, and Starling. Starling putting it straight into the main event. And good way to start out your 2023 Supercross campaign. When you figure that in the 450 class, well, let's look. Hill's an X-Factory rider. Wilson's a factory rider, X-Factory rider. Barsha's a gas factory rider. Musquin is a KTM. Stewart's Husky. Webb KTM. Roczen Suzuki, and Sexton is with Honda. I mean, there was no room for anybody else that isn't a factory rider, and Starling put it right in there. So good job for Starling. McElrath coming in 10th. Noren in 11th. Brandon Scher, Cross Lane, Tristan Lane with a 14th. Chase Marquier was there. So it was pretty cool. And then of course, obviously Benny Bloss went down and got hurt, and so he didn't make it. Main events. Let's go. Let's take a quick look at the 250 LCQ. Jerry Robbins taking the win with Stanford, Schlosser, and Cross. There was a lot of carnage in that class as well, but it was cool. Masterpool just missing out on. He was in qualifying and went down. Vrez 42 didn't make it. Woodstock, Taylor, Harrison, the rest of those guys all had to go home. Tough deal, but the top 4 guys went right into the main event. LCQ of the 450, provisional results for those, Noren, Morans, Hill, and Short putting it into the main event, with Ray just missing out. Alex Ray, if you ever watch him and just kind of focus on him, he doesn't get the greatest start. If that guy got good starts, he'd probably make every single main event. He's that fast. But he worked his way back towards the front of the pack and was right there on Short's back tire at the finish. And if they would have had a few more laps, I think he would have moved himself into the top 4. Cartwell, Marquier, Law, Schaller, Grain, Gardner, and then Tristan Lane, our rider. Right behind him was Lesher, and then Logan Carnell. Both of those guys didn't get the greatest starts and really had to work their way through the pack towards the front, and they both rode pretty well. Again, super stacked field, so to make it into a 450 main event is a big, big deal. 250 main event. Let's take a look at the visual results in the 250 class. And I'll be honest with you, it was interesting because Jet Lawrence went out in first practice. He got like a lap in, pulled off. And he crashed, actually, is what he did. Went back up to the pits. He had to get his bike straightened out, get new gloves. I'm not sure what exactly he was doing, but he was gone. Popped back on for like 3 laps, 2.5 laps of first practice, was like 4th fastest in first qualifying times. Went back out in second practice. I think he laid down the second fastest lap to Austin Faulkner, and then he came back in third practice and kind of did the same thing. But he was quiet, and I don't know how else to say that other than he just was quiet all day long, where you just didn't hear a lot about him. You didn't really talk much about him, and then main event time comes along, and bam, look at him. He is on the gas out front and basically walked away with this thing. He was absolutely gone. He also put it into the 59-second mark of his best lap times, which is the only person. Well, I shouldn't say that. I believe that the other guys were in 59 in the 450 class as well. So let's take a look, matter of fact. So he was at 59.66, 59.66, 6'6". And we'll see where the rest of the guys kind of fared. But Lawrence, Hampshire, McAdoo, good racing up from Hampshire looked awesome. I was really stoked with him. McAdoo looked solid as a rock as well. Olenberg looked really, really good on a Smart Top Moto Concept Honda bike. They're not a factory team, yet he is right there. Their bikes run that well. They run that good. They're beating factory guys. Max Volan is Red Bull KTM. He is a full factory guy. And Olenberg got around him and passed him and ended up finishing in fourth. Enzo Lopes had a great ride. Levi Kitchen. I will be honest with you, I was kind of hoping for Levi to do a little bit better. But on the same token, it is A1. And I'll tell you, lots of Supercross championships have been lost at A1. But you're not winning a championship at A1. So you have to get through the race. And for him to put again a seventh, not bad. Get some started. And you got Nicoletti followed by Robertson, Kelly, Walsh, Drake, Thompson, Rodriguez, Wageman, Sanford, Yoder, Robbins, Cross, Schwartz, Schlosser, and then obviously Austin Faulkner. And as I said, I was sitting there with his mom when he went down, and man, she didn't say much, but you could just tell she was absolutely heartbroken. And I just felt absolutely horrible for her. Whether you like Austin or you don't like Austin, nobody wants to see someone's career go the way that Austin's has, especially somebody that's as fast and really could probably give Jet a run for his money, right? Because that's the one thing that we're missing, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't really want to watch a Supercross where I know who's going to win every moto. I mean, you want to have that. You want to have somebody there that can really push them, and you just don't really see that right now with Lawrence. I think Jet's going to pretty much walk away with this thing, but we'll see. 450 class. Let's go down here to the 450 provisional results. Tomac. Oh, and I guess they already changed it on here, but it is interesting because they actually had Malcolm Stewart in last for a while, and they've removed him back up to 16th. But let's go back and talk about Eli. So obviously we talked real briefly about him, but Eli comes out of the gate, pulls the whole shot, never looked back, super easy until he falls, right? and it was the track was treacherous. That was a really steep uphill. I ran up it during practice or during the track walk, and it was steep. And so but to see him regroup, not lose his composure, and to basically just put his head down and start pounding away at the guys in front of him was pretty damn cool. Coop Webb, what can you say, right? That kid, I think, he's pretty open. His post-race interviews was pretty awesome. His pre-race interviews was pretty awesome. He's pretty damn funny. And then his post-race interviews were even better. And so, he believes he can be up there winning championships, and to watch him come through the pack the way he did, he's going to be a force. I think you're going to see a lot of Webb running up front this year. Sexton ran good. He was, obviously made a little mistake, which let Eli back by and also let Webb by. Sexton, it's a really solid run. Top 3, round 1. Again, like I said, you can't win this championship in round 1, but you sure as heck can lose it. And so I thought Ferrandis rode really, really well, watching him all day. And we're going to talk about Kenny here in a second, but Kenny with 5th. Colt Nichols, 6th place in his first outing in the 450 class in Supercross. Now, that's as a full-time rider. And I just think that is something that's super cool. And I think it's been overlooked. A lot of storylines happening at A1. And one of the ones that really hasn't been talked about is Colt Nichols, because a 6th place is an absolutely solid to the rock finish. Would he have rather been in 3rd or 2nd or 1st? Absolutely. But for his first ride on the factory team at the first race of the year, which has a ton of pressure on it, and to go out there and do what he's done, I think it's outstanding. I'm just super excited for Colt and his finish. Anderson, on the other hand, I really expected him to be a top 3 guy, but I did see his crash in practice today, and dude hit hard. And so for him to salvage, a 7th isn't so bad. Plessinger rode really well too. I would have liked to see Plessinger up, but look at this. Eli Tomac factory, Cooper Webb factory, Sexton factory, Fernandez factory, Roczen factory, Nichols factory, Anderson factory, Plessinger factory, Cicerillo factory. The first non-factory rider is Savachi, right, who's been factory his whole career. Barcia's factory, Musquin's factory, Craig's factory, and then you get to Wilson, the first non-factory rider, and on a support team with that Fire Honda. Christian Craig is another one that I was a little disappointed in, just because I wanted to see him up front. Excuse me. Did not see him crash in practice, but I heard he had a big get off in practice. So again, another guy that kind of gutted it out and finished the series off, the season off. What we saw from him in outdoors, running in the top 3, top 4, top 5, every single moto, you're going to see him creeping back towards the front of the Supercrosses as well, especially when you watched him in the whoops. Even on a 450, there are very few guys that are as fast as him in the whoops, and that's a big separator, and I think will really come into play a little bit further as we move on. Malcolm Stewart, obviously, if you've watched the race and you know the guy was riding phenomenal. I got to tell you, the crowd went absolutely crazy when Malcolm got into the lead. I thought being the people's champion is absolutely what Malcolm is right now. I think I'm a fan. I'd love to see Malcolm win a race this year. Love to see him on the podium more often. And I think he had a podium run going this week, that last weekend, until that horrific crash. Now, it didn't look nearly as bad on TV as it did in person. In person, it was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't think he was going to get up, right? From where I was standing, where I was sitting in the stands, it looked super violent. It didn't look nearly as violent on TV. So that's kind of a cool deal. Harlan Hill, Starling, Morantz, Noren, and Short. So that rounds out the top 22 for Anaheim 1. Now let's talk specifically about Kenny Roczen and what we got going on with Kenny. And I'll be honest. Ken has made the decision to go back to Suzuki, which I don't think anybody probably saw coming. There was a lot of rumors about it. I think a lot of it were kind of jokes because the bike hasn't really progressed like all the other bikes. But you know what? He looked really good on that thing. Got a great start, ran up front. Denny Stevenson was saying, Kenny will never win. He will never be a top 5 guy or a top 3 guy again. He won't put another Supercross notch under his belt. The thing that I find interesting is Kenny hasn't won a Supercross in a while, right? So, that was with massive pressure from Honda. That was with, expectations of winning. Kenny's in the catbird seat right now, especially for this year, because you have a bike that hasn't been developed. You have a bike that they haven't really done anything to upgrade it for the last 7-8 years, right? You have really no expectations on that. So Kenny has kind of in the best of both worlds. I don't know what his contract was. I don't know if they paid him a ton of money to do it, but I do know that he really, as far as the industry is concerned, he's in a really good spot. He's making main events. He's running in the top 5. He's battling in his qualifiers. He gets tons of press. His fan line was huge, and be honest with you, this is the Suzuki. I told me Suzuki's been blowing off the shelves at dealerships ever since Kenny jumped back to Suzuki, and so everything's rolling in his direction. Maybe he might not get a win again in Supercross on that bike, at least this year. But I'll tell you, there's really no downside to Kenny riding this bike, because if he doesn't do well, the bike obviously probably part of the issue. If he does well, then really it's him riding the bike. It's his talent, and everything is kind of uphill for him. Everything is easy for him when it comes to racing, and I think that's been overlooked by a lot of people. When they look at Kenny, he kind of controls the situation now. I think and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Kenny doesn't want to win. I know Kenny wants to win, right? I know it because I happen to be close to him. Well, I wasn't talking to him. I was listening to him talk to somebody else when I was standing in their pits. And, he said as much. I want to win, right? He was actually, in just in all fairness, he wasn't very happy with the team and the way things were working earlier in the day. It was a pretty big deal in the pits on Saturday, as Kenny just kind of ripped some heads off to get things the way he wanted it. And but the results were there. I mean, he top 5. If you were on factory Honda, KTM, Yamaha, and you were the guy designed to go win the race, getting a 5th place probably is not the best result for you, right? But when you're on Suzuki and there's not much expectation, 5th is really good, and it's a great building block for him to move forward, because all the testing in the world doesn't put you in race situation. And now they're on real Supercross tracks. Now they're actually out racing. Now they actually have some feedback that he can actually throw back at the team. I think you're going to see nothing but positives coming from Kenny. Do I think he's going to win? He hasn't won in a long time on a Honda. So I don't know what the change, other than all that pressure being off of him and just him being loose, right? I don't know. I don't know if Kenny will win, but it's sure fun to watch. I can tell you that. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we are going to talk a little bit about some goggles and then wrap up the show. We'll be right back in one more second.
Just signed on with Viral, so I'm excited for the season to get going and try to get arena cross and put on a good show.
All right, so we're going to talk about Viral Brand, some more features of the Viral Brand Signature Series Plus goggle. So what I've got here is I got a Signature Series Plus with a gray lens. Now the smoked lens, this goggle retails for $99. If you get the Revo mirrored lenses, that goggle retails for $129. One of the things I want to point out is we run metal tear-off posts. So there is no chance of breaking off your tear-off post from a rock, from a crash, or any of those things. We also run one of the quickest change lenses in the industry. So you're going to go ahead and click right here. We're going to click up like that, pop the top, and your lens comes out just like that, right? So how quick was that? When you put the lens back in, there's a little, you can see right here, there's a little card slot right there. We're going to slide that in right here to the end. We're going to click the nose in first. We're going to click the top in just like this. Make sure it is down everywhere. Once it's all down, you click right there, and then you're going to hit your lock again, and you are all locked in, and you're back and ready to go. Now that is a extremely quick change lens. It has a huge field of vision with our precision optics lens, so you got great clarity of the ground. Matter of fact, I ran down after the first practice, maybe it was a qualifier. I ran down to the pits. It was a practice, because I could have sworn that Tristan Lane had taken his goggles off, and I didn't know what happened. I was like, why aren't he wearing his goggles? The lenses, because he's running clear lenses, the lenses were so clear and so defined. I could see his face in there really well. And from the stands, it didn't look like he was wearing any goggles. It was pretty surreal. And I ran down, he goes, oh no, man, everything is fine. So optically correct precision optics lens, metal tear-off posts, quick change lens is what you get with the new Viral Brand Signature Series Plus goggle. Not to mention our quick change straps, which just pop right out, our magnetic face foam, which just pops right out, and of course, outstanding design to match all the different gears out there. Plus, we have 15 extra straps that you can buy that go along with this goggle to match almost any gear you have. We're gonna wrap this baby up. I want to thank you guys for joining us for episode number 28 of the Viral Nation. I want to thank my riders. I want to thank Mike ALESSI for doing a hell of a job for us in the General Tire Arena Cross series. I want to thank Logan Carnow, Tristan Lane, and Trey Fierro. We are excited to have you on board and super excited for you guys to be part of our team growing. As I said before, we don't have a huge sponsorship program. We don't do a lot. So if you do get sponsored by us, you should be very thankful for that, because we are turning down way more than we're actually sponsoring. It really depends on the region you're in, the class that you're riding, and if it's in the area that we're looking for more riders. If I already have a rider in that area, then we're not going to probably sponsor you. We might, you never know, but that's kind of what we're looking at. And we're working on bringing on a sponsor person to work with us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. If you made it this far into the video, subscribe, man. That way you don't miss another one. Don't forget to check out Fox Sports 1 on Sunday mornings or Sundays to see the General Tire Arena Cross. Watch Mike ALESSI, the Viral Brain Goggles, kicking butt each and every weekend. And don't forget to check out Supercross when it comes back on the Peacock Network. And until next time, same bat time, same bat station, I'm Scot Steffy. I am with Viral Brain Goggles, and this is the Viral Nation. And I want to thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you again. Peace.
Wake up at 5 a.m. Gotta be at the track at 10. It's time to ride. All of this anticipation to ride in the Viral Nation.